In today's video, we're gonna show you how we took a shot that looked a little like this to a shot that looks a little bit more like this, using a pretty underrated piece of gear. All right, so we're out on location. We're doing a tech scout right now. We've just got the camera out. We're gonna practice a couple shots. One of the shots involves a vehicle. We're gonna have our talent in the driver's seat. They're gonna be on the phone. It's gonna be parked, so it's a little bit easier. But we've already ran into an issue. The windshield has got some massive glares, some massive reflections, and we gotta figure out how to fix this. There's a couple different ways that we have in mind. Let's start with the first one. So when we're shooting shiny surfaces, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll block the light that's creating that shine. And what you'll use is negative fill, some 4x4 floppies. Because this shot is so tight, we think we can get away with putting some of these up on either side, but we know that when we do this, we're gonna be blocking out some of that light. We'll see how big of a problem this is. Let's go ahead and give it a try, see what we come up with. I'm just gonna kind of bring this in. We're gonna need a bag. Thank you. Oh no! Oh sheesh. So really, oh man, this is it. This is really good. So of course what we're trying to do here is with the windshield being at kind of a 45-degree angle, what it's doing is reflecting these trees above. We're just going right over the top of it and blocking out that reflection. Now right now, it's looking a little shady. We were a little worried about this. If you're gonna go ahead and move forward with a method like this, you're probably gonna need to bring in some additional light. Let's get that other floppy up too. We're gonna raise up. You raise me up. Look at this, it's just a beautiful little shade. I think we need to push them further back. We do have a little bit of some shadow there, yeah. So if you wanted to, double up on your floppies and do another bank on the front end, I guess you could do that. But for now, let's go ahead and let's look at the camera and see what we got here. As you can see, we have knocked out the reflection of the trees where it matters most, but we've kind of created a new problem. We've got kind of a shaded top half of the windshield and then an unshaded bottom half of the windshield, which doesn't look totally natural, but you could maybe get away with. I think that if you had a few more floppies, you could probably do this, but you're gonna lose more light. And I'm seeing right now that you can catch some of the C-stands. This is an issue. Cars are very reflective, not great. I think you're really gonna like our next option for getting rid of these glares and reflections. It's a lot smaller, it's a lot more portable, requires a lot less people, a lot less time. It's a polarizer from NiSi. Yeehaw! Pretty unique, and we'll get into some of those details of what makes it so unique in a little bit, but I think you can already tell. It's in like a matte box filter tray, like a stage. Pretty cool, pretty convenient. It's a magical piece of glass that if you rotate it a particular way, it'll just get rid of reflections and glares. It's pretty cool. Let's pop out on the camera and take a look at what we got. As you can see, I've got a bunch of glares right now, but I'm gonna twist this gear and abracadabra alakazam. It's like I've got x-ray vision all of a sudden. I can just see right through that windshield. It's actually pretty amazing how the reflections are just gone. It's like the trees aren't even up there. It makes the solids, the floppies, really kind of a silly solution. Well, I'm pretty impressed. Let's take it through a few more tests. Let's see what it can do with contrast, with sky and trees, with water. We'll show you some footage right now. So we're back at the office. I've got my matte box, I've got my filter, and I'm feeling really good about the test shots we got. They've proven that this filter works the way it should, and I'm really enjoying the convenience factor of being able to house this thing in a matte box. Having the ability to pair it with other filters if I want to, like a diffusion filter or even like a variable ND, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is really cool. And I really appreciate not having to use a matte box with a rotating filter tray. Sometimes this can get just a little bit clunky, and having the simplicity of being able to control your polarizer with this little gear right here is yeehaw! Something that I find really refreshing about this filter is the fact that it's not proprietary. It'll fit in standard matte boxes. There are so many companies that are coming out with proprietary filters, proprietary matte box systems like the Tilted Mirage and the Polar Pro series, where you can't mix and match. You get kind of cornered into this ecosystem, and and sometimes it can be a little limiting. Something else that's pretty unique about this polarizer is the fact that it does have this gear as well as a 15mm rod mount right in this filter tray. So now you can go ahead and you can pull or fine tune your polarizer like during a shot. You can mount a motor right onto your tray. It doesn't even have to be attached to your camera rig. So what if you're like me and you're thinking being able to remotely adjust your polarizer on the fly like is convenient, but it's just not a feature that you really think you'd use that much? I get it. But what if I told you instead of fine-tuning your polarizer remotely, instead you could fine-tune your exposure? Well, if you take this filter right here, it's a linear polarizer from NiSi. If you pair these two things together, they will function as a variable neutral density filter. In its simplest form, that's really all a variable neutral density filter is. Two polarizers working together to control the amount of light that's hitting your lens. I could see myself using this in a shooting situation where a character is walking from inside to outside, you know, a serious exposure change. Instead of making an iris change, I think being able to make an ND change could be pretty cool. Some variable NDs and polarizers, they can suffer from pretty significant color casts or color shifts. These filters have the words true color like written all over them, so I had pretty high expectations for these performing very well in the color cast department, and turns out they're just fine. No complaints here. After reviewing some of the footage, it appears that there's really no major shifts that I could detect, although after getting a tip from one of our viewers, we were able to determine that when you pair the linear polarizer with the rotating polarizer, you don't get the best results with cameras like the Blackmagic 6K Pro because the camera doesn't have an infrared cut filter. When using the 6K Pro with these filters, the IR pollution causes certain hues to turn reddish brown. In this situation, the camera really seems to be more to blame than the filters. We tested these same filters out with the Ursa 12K, which does have an IR cut filter, and got a little different results. The entire frame had a tint of purple when we went heavy with the ND. This tint seems to be a little more subtle than the 6K's results, and the less you crank down on the ND, the less color cast you'll get, as you can see here in some of these examples. So all in all, I think my final impressions with this polarizer is it works. Can you find other polarizers on the market that are cheaper, that can do generally the same thing? Yeah, you can. But I think you're paying for the convenience factor of not having to screw this thing onto the front of your lens, being able to pair it with other filters, and not having to deal with a clunky map box that has rotating trays. And then of course being able to pair it with a motor and pull it remotely if you needed to. If you want to go ahead and pick this thing up, we have the link below with all the details that you need. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for this video. I'm Zach. Leave a comment if you want. Maybe a like, hang around for more videos. Thanks, guys.